It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you...
It is midday and this is Africa Update coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa Radio from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. I'm in studio with Onele Nzinzi, Msibudi Makura and Buntle Headbush are coming up in this hour. A ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran seems to have been short-lived. And a 23-year-old from the DRC cycling from Goma to South Africa with a message of peace. But first up, the news with Onele Nzinzi and our sports headlines with Msibudi Makura.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and greetings to our listeners. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni will seek re-election for another term in polls that are due early next year to extend his nearly 4-decade rule. This is the first confirmation from his National Resistance Movement party. Uganda will hold its general election in January, in which voters will also elect lawmakers. 80-year-old Museveni has been in power since 1986 and is Africa's fourth longest ruling leader. The ruling party has changed the constitution twice in the past to allow him to extend his rule. Public anger is boiling over in Kenya following the death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody and the recent police shooting on a street vendor during protests. 3 officers have been charged over Ojwang's death. Channel Africa's Nairobi correspondent Alex Carrier says there are calls for the Deputy Inspector General to be included in the investigations.
Members of the public and all other human rights organizations have been calling for the prosecution and a fair look and approach at the whole issue and the exclusion of the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Eliud Lagat, is the one that is raising even more questions because they expect that him having allegedly ordered the arrest of the late Ojwang makes him a bigger prime suspect in the whole murder case. But for now, the anger is being driven by the fact that only the small fish is being fried.
Over 40 people, including children and healthcare workers, were killed in an attack on a hospital in Sudan over the weekend. Saturday's attack on the Al Mujlad Hospital took place in West Kordofan, near the front line between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces, who have been fighting each other since the conflict broke out in April 2023. The WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus called for attacks on health infrastructures to stop without saying who was responsible. The WHO Sudan office said that 6 children and 5 medics were killed in the attack, reporting extensive damage to the facility. The South African government says it has established several structures to address flood disasters across various provinces in the country. This came up in Parliament at the joint briefing of the Department of Cooperative Governance in the Eastern Cape Province. Dr. Elias Sithole says COGTA says the Department of Health, Home Affairs as well as Transport, amongst others, are part of these structures.
Presenting the structures which were activated to manage this event. There is a ICDM, that is the structure which is chaired by the minister. All the cabinet members and MECs of provinces, they are participating. We have also activated on the left-hand side the NJFCC, that is the National Joint Flood Coordination Committee, which is chaired by myself, but also we have activated the extended NJFCC, which is chaired by our DG.
Lastly, Israel and Iran have both confirmed they've agreed to a ceasefire that's proposed by the U.S. President Donald Trump after 12 days of fighting. The Iranians launched a final barrage on missiles against Israel before confirming the truce. Israeli rescuers said 4 people were killed overnight. The BBC's Dan Johnson reports.
A statement from the Israeli government saying that it would now adhere to the terms of this ceasefire agreement. It says Israel has removed a dual immediate existential threat both in the nuclear and ballistic missile fields. It also says its military has achieved full air control over Tehran's skies, inflicted severe damage on the military leadership and destroyed dozens of central Iranian government targets. It's listing the targets and the strikes that it inflicted overnight. It says in light of achieving the objectives of the operation and in full cooperation with President Trump, Israel has agreed to the president's proposal for a bilateral ceasefire.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Banyana depart for Morocco ahead of their WAFCON title defense, while Al Ali bow out at the FIFA Club World Cup. I have details of these and other stories at 12:30.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Onele Ntinzi with our news update and Msibudi Makura with our sports headlines. It is 12:06 Central African time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenView channel 628 and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And continue with us or join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126, hashtag Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on hashtag Africa Update Asked, conflict in the DRC is not stopping a 23-year-old athlete from Goma from sending a message of peace across the African continent. Now, how would you explain your country and Africa to a foreign person? And this is what we're asking you today. How would you explain your country and Africa to a foreign person? That is, you send us your views and your thoughts and your responses on all our social media platforms. It's hashtag Africa Update Us.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Our South Africa's International Relations and Cooperations Minister Ronald Lamola says a state burial in Zambia represents the most fitting tribute to honor the former President Edgar Lungu's legacy and service to the Zambian nation. Our Lamola met with Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema in Lusaka. This comes as Lungu's family has indicated that it wants to bury the former Zambian leader in South Africa. Lungu passed away earlier this month after receiving treatment in a Pretoria hospital. Bunolo Maribe has more.
The family of the late former Zambian president, Edgar Lungu, wants the sixth Zambian leader to be buried in South Africa. International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola has gone to Lusaka as the presidential special envoy as the bitter feud between Lungu's family and the current Zambian government continues. The minister's spokesperson, Crispin Piri, says that this is a sensitive matter.
In reaffirming the South African government's position, Minister Lamola emphasized that a state burial in Zambia represents the most fitting tribute to honor former President Lungu's distinguished legacy and service to the Zambian nation. Concurrently, Minister Lamola acknowledged that the legal obligation to respect the expressed wishes of the late former president's family are also of primacy.
Lungu's family says they will continue to seek peace and unity among Zambians during this time. The family has expressed its appreciation to the South African government for their respectful support to hold the private funeral and burial in South Africa. President of the Patriotic Front, Miles Sampa, says that the political party will miss him.
Yeah, turn of events, obviously very saddening and emotional. It's going towards 3 weeks now, but thank God we're getting to the burial day. It's unfortunate that clearly the family and the government, or President HH, the state, have not come to a common agreement. The government did not do or wanted to do what was not agreed by the family.
Meanwhile, among the leaders who have been buried outside their countries and their bodies have never been repatriated is former Congolese strongman Mobutu Sese Seko, who was laid to rest in Morocco in the 90s. Bonolo Maribe, SBC News, Johannesburg.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Israel has accused Iran of violating a ceasefire that came into effect earlier and has ordered more strikes on Iran. Now, Iran, however, says the accusation is false and the ceasefire was intended to end the 12-day war. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by a Middle East political commentator, Dr. Ori Goldberg. Dr. Goldberg, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you for having me.
Now, when the ceasefire was announced, there was already talks that it would not last. Was this the general feeling all round?
Let's begin by the fact I have no reason to assume what Iran is saying is wrong. 2 missiles were fired. They were fired from the general vicinity of Syria and Lebanon, a place where a lot of weapons can be fired easily by various elements. There's no reason to assume that had Iran chosen to break the ceasefire, it would have done so by firing 2 missiles on almost unpopulated areas in the Israeli north. I think before Israel actually manages to carry out the orders to make Tehran burn, Israel will check this very thoroughly, and there's a good chance, as is often the case with ceasefires, that the ceasefire will simply continue.
Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he says that they achieved their goals in destroying Iran's nuclear program. But is it really known if this is the case? Because the big question is, do we know what Iran has?
No, we don't. And we don't know what Iran has now either. The United States struck Iranian facilities. It used the infamous MOPs, the bunker busting bombs, but we don't know what happened, and it is actually more likely to assume that the fissionable material was transported outside of these facilities, perhaps even in coordination with the United States, who had no wish to set off any kind of nuclear chain reaction. Broadly speaking, Prime Minister Netanyahu's statement doesn't appear to hold a lot of veracity on any account. Also remember that during this 12-day war, Israel constantly shifted and oscillated between various war goals. So it's not quite clear what Netanyahu says when he says all the goals were met. If anything, what was met was severe derailment of Iran's missile program. But even that, considering the serious damage taken by the Israeli heartland, even that is not a particular achievement to be proud of.
Now, Dr. Goldberg, the ceasefire was called after Iran hit the U.S. base in Qatar. And this is after the Iranians gave a warning to the Qataris that they were going to attack the U.S. base. And, you know, the question then is this the only reason for the ceasefire? Because clearly, after that attack, not long after that, then there were calls for a ceasefire and agreements had to be put to the table. Or is it just a realization that actually, hang on, we don't really know what they do have? The fact that they have gone out and ensured that they don't want any people injured or any loss of life, but they will show their prowess in the sense that they are going to attack to send the message across.
Well, I actually think the quote unquote attack on Qatar was a theater production mounted for the benefit of Israeli and American audiences more than anything else. It wasn't just a warning to the Qataris, it was coordinated with the Qataris. And it was coordinated with the Qataris, it was also coordinated with the United States. The ceasefire has apparently been in the making for several days at least now. And both Israel and Iran have a vested interest in a ceasefire. Iran is under constant bombing. Life in Iran is deteriorating quickly. There's no internet. Citizens are fleeing the large cities, most prominently Tehran. There's a need for the leadership of the Islamic Republic to restore stability to the country. In many ways, although not at the same levels, this is happening in Israel. Despite Israel's famed air defense systems, Iranian missiles have not only been managing to get through, but they've managed to cause some serious damage as well as numerous casualties in Israel proper. It's this morning we had 5 barrages, one after the other, which meant 5 situations in which we had to shelter in the space of minutes from each other. This was, as is par for the course, the last attempt before the ceasefire goes into effect. So I would assume there's real reason to believe the Iranians in this case. They didn't set out to break the ceasefire. Had they wanted to, this is not what they would have done.
Now, how likely is it now for the US and Iran to come to a nuclear agreement?
Oh, I think it's quite likely, even if the agreement will be of an interim nature. I think that was where US-Iranian talks were going. I think Israel has demonstrated that it cannot really effectively, significantly hinder such an agreement. Israel showed all of its cards. The Israeli strike on Iran had been meticulously planned for long months, if not more, before it took place. And now the Iranians and the Americans are quite aware of everything Israel can do. Israel can do a lot, but it can do a lot when it comes to the tactics and pyrotechnics. It can blow up things, it can assassinate senior leaders and nuclear scientists, but it has very little effect on any kind of strategic horizon for the region. The Americans and the Iranians were talking about strategy. Israel is not considered a responsible partner for a strategic dialogue. So I think both the Iranians and the Americans can now move on and potentially reach, at the very least, some kind of interim nuclear agreement.
Now, we've seen a lot of leaders basically, taking sides or almost taking sides or saying that Israel has every right to defend themselves against Iran, and also saying that the US had every right to attack the bunkers of weaponry. How detrimental will this be for the Middle East and the world, especially with the fact that now world leaders have come out and stated how they really feel and showed their cards. For Iran and their supporters in terms of the Middle East, where we saw some countries stepping up to the table and saying, listen, if you need us, we're here. So now everyone has kind of put their cards on the table, and it's exposed a lot.
I think you make a very good point. I think the main detrimental effect will be for the world, because the leaders that you mentioned have shown that they don't really care about international law, because according to every reasonable assessment I know, including by Western intelligence organization, Israel was in breach of various and quite a few articles of the international law of warfare when it attacked Iran in unprovoked unilateral fashion. However, there is also opposition within these elite groups of the privileged global north, like the European Union. There are countries like Spain, like Ireland, that are pushing to look into sanctioning Israel with regard to its behavior. I don't think we've heard the last of this discussion within the European Union. Also, the United States. Look, it's true that the United States struck Iran's nuclear sites, but the United States did not do anything else. And even in those strikes, it did what Israel asked it to do, and it was a brilliant tactical operation. But it wasn't necessarily any more than that, particularly if Iran's stockpile remains operational. So while Israel may have appeared to have won the day, this is a very, very short-term victory, if it is a victory at all. These things are only beginning, and I think countries in the global south are now realizing that the global leadership, mostly concentrated in the global north, will be ready to flip on any of its partners should it feel directly challenged, as it did with Israel. I also believe that Israel has already become and will continue to grow as a political liability to leaders like the Prime Minister of the UK or the President of France, who have defended Israel's right to defend itself against Iranian aggression. And last but not least, it is important to remember that what all of these leaders said was that Iran should never be able to have a nuclear weapon. That is a very strict limitation, it's true, but it wasn't the main bone of contention, at least regarding what Israel said. Israel claimed Iran should not have the possibility to enrich uranium at all, not even in a civilian capacity. All of these world leaders did not refer to civilian enrichment. So I think what we're likely to see is an agreement that provides Iran with some capacity for civilian enrichment, even as it, in strict accordance with what the Iranians themselves said, obligates Iran not to develop a nuclear weapon, thereby bringing Iran back to some extent into the fold of quote unquote responsible nations. So, all in all, this is not a victory for Israel.
Well, Dr. Goldberg, thank you for your time on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you for having me.
That's Middle East political commentator Dr. Ori Goldberg joining us on the line.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126 and we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am,
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views, share your opinion, engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 22 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Well, today's question is mainly about a conversation that I'm going to be having shortly with a young man who decided to embark on a journey to cycle from Goma in the DRC all the way to South Africa, and having started in Rwanda. Now, our question to you is, how would you explain your country and Africa to a foreign person? Our conflict in the DRC is not stopping this 23-year-old athlete from Goma from sending a message of peace across Africa. Send us your views and your thoughts on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
A war in the Democratic Republic of Congo has left hundreds of thousands of people displaced. But a 23-year-old athlete from Goma is not letting that stop him from sending a message of peace across Africa, more importantly to the youth. Our Miguel Masai Sai is cycling 6,000 kilometers from Goma to South Africa, crossing through Rwanda, Tanzania and Zambia. Masai Sai now joins us on the line to speak to us further on this. Now, Miguel, this is a different one. It's an interesting one. Why did you decide to embark on this journey? Tell us about what made you get to this point.
Thanks so much. I'm doing this journey because I believe in the power of sport to inspire and unity. As a young athlete from Goma, I want to show the world that even the midst of conflict, we can rise, we can dream, and we can take action for peace. This journey, Pedals for Peace, is my personal mission to bring attention to what is happening in the eastern of DR Congo and carry a message of peace across Africa from Goma to Cape Town.
Now, what type of support have you received from this trip, this journey? And what type of response have you gotten from the youth that you have come across?
The support I've received has mostly come from individuals, like people who believe in what I'm doing, we've shared the story, and people giving me food, shelter, encouragement, or just a smile. Um, I don't have a big sponsor or a team, but I believe that every small act of support counts, and that is what kept me going.
And what was the journey like? Because I cannot imagine that it was easy. What was it like?
The journey was not easy, because to start from Goma, I crossed Rwanda, Tanzania, now in Zambia. So it was not easy because, firstly, for the climate, to start in Tanzania is very hot. After that, some risks. I crossed parks, dangerous animals, and after that, trek, the big trek camion that doesn't care about what I'm doing, and this is one of my challenges. It was very difficult to reach Zambia, now Lusaka.
And, obviously you're having a bit of a rest and the journey is going to continue. But, with regards to going back home and where you come from, what was it like? And when you decided to embark on this journey, what was your family's reaction?
My family's reaction was they worried about it. They asked me if I'm able to do it. So I tell them, so we are here with this journey. I want to break the silence of thing that is here in eastern of Congo, especially a million of people, children, mother are suffering in silence. And through this project, I wanted to break that silence, and I want the world to know that we the young people of Congo, we want is only peace. We want peace in eastern of Congo. Yeah, is that.
Well, Miguel, what you have taken on, not a lot of people would do that, and kudos to you and the strength that you bring forward. Now, in terms of timelines, when are you looking to get back on the road and finally make it your way to the Western Cape of South Africa?
Now, I just want to fix some issue of papers, visa. I have to cross Botswana, Namibia, then enter South Africa. I want to fix some paper issue. I think this week I'm gonna start my journey. That and I want to reach Cape Town. Um, end of July, I think. Yeah.
Well, Miguel, thank you for doing what you're doing and sending this message of peace across the African continent. And thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update, and all the best. Hopefully we'll speak to you at the end of July once you are here in South Africa.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
That's 23-year-old Miguel Masai Sai, who has embarked on a journey from Goma in the DRC all the way to South Africa, going through Rwanda, Tanzania, Zambia, and looking to go through Botswana, Namibia, and then finally in South Africa, in Cape Town. And this is a journey he's embarked on to send a message of peace across the African continent.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni will seek re-election for another term in polls due early next year to extend his nearly 4-decade rule. The Department of Cooperative Governance in South Africa has confirmed that the number of people who have died due to the Eastern Cape Province floods now stands at 97. And Israel has accused Iran of violating a ceasefire that came into effect earlier and has ordered more strikes on Iran. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective. The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Interracial relationships. And now you are based in the States and you are married to a beautiful white woman, white lady.
I learned that, for us in our culture, we literally can speak our mind. I remember when we started dating and whatnot, and, she picked up like a little bit of weight. And me, I was like, oh, wow, you must be happy in this relationship because look at you. You look great. You're even picking up some weight. And she got really, really offended. And it took I think it was about a couple of hours before I could realize that, because I could tell that she was off after that. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. Until later when I was talking to her, I'm like, you were really, really off today. And then she expressed that, yeah, because you're telling me that I'm picking on some weight. And I'm like, in my culture, when you are gaining some weight, it means you're happy. Yes. So that's what I was trying to imply.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege.
We say good afternoon to Msibudi Makura with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A very good afternoon from the sports desk. We'll start with football news. So a stunning 8-goal thriller at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey saw FC Porto as well as Al Ahly share the spoils in a 4-4 draw at the FIFA Club World Cup. But heartbreakingly, it wasn't enough for the former African champions to continue with their FIFA Club World Cup journey in the USA. Now, Wissam Abu Ali stole the headlines with a superb hat-trick for the Egyptian Giants, but a last gaps rocket from Porto's Pepe meant both clubs bowed out despite producing one of the tournament's most entertaining matches. So despite the fireworks on display, the draw wasn't enough for Al Ahly, who showed grit in front of the travelling fans who had come out in their numbers to paint the stadium red and support their team in their final game at the ongoing FIFA Club World Cup. Meanwhile, Lionel Messi will face former club Paris Saint-Germain at the FIFA Club World Cup as Inter Miami drew 2-2 with Palmeiras to reach the knockout stages in the early hours of this morning. A point was sufficient for both sides to progress, and Tadio Allende as well as Luis Suarez had Inter Miami cruising at 2-0 in front of 60,000 fans at the Hard Rock Stadium. However, the Brazilian side showed 2 goals in the final 10 minutes with Paulino as well as Maurizio to ensure that they went through as the winners of Group A on goal difference. Inter finished second and set up a meeting with PSG, while the Argentina forward Lionel Messi, having played for the side back between 2021 and 2022. So PSG defeated the Seattle Sounders 2-0 to seal their place in the knockout phases of this competition. On the continent now, the Confederation of African Football has officially unveiled the venues that will stage key matches at the upcoming African Nations Championship CHAN tournament. Now, the tournament is set to run from the 2nd to the 30th of August, and its co-hosting nations Kenya, Tanzania, as well as Uganda, marks the return of the continental competition to East Africa for the very first time since Rwanda hosted it back in 2016. So Tanzania will kick off proceedings proceedings with the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Dar es Salaam selected to host the opening match on the 2nd of August. Uganda's Mandela National Stadium in Kampala will also be the venue for the third place playoff matches, while the final will be played at the iconic Kasarani Stadium in Nairobi, Kenya on the 30th of August. In a move also highlighting CAF's growing focus on inclusivity as well as regional integration, Zanzibar has also been confirmed as one of the hosting nations. Onto this now, the South African women's football team Banyana Banyana are en route to Morocco, where they will hope to successfully defend their Women's Africa Cup of Nations title that they won back in 2022. Banyana Banyana coach Desiree Ellis only finished, or rather finalized, her 24-player squad for the tournament on Monday, with 2 players on standby should replacements be required during this year's tournament. Now, Ellis is without a couple of stalwarts who have retired or are injured or not available, with the big surprise absentee being the star Thembi Kgatlana. But the squad consists of players capable of playing in more than one position. Ellis says versatility is key to keep players fresh during the duration of this year's tournament.
In a tournament like this, you got to make sure that you rotate. You got to make sure when the right time is to rotate, and then you got to make sure that you have your players ready for when you get to the latter stage of the tournament.
And finally, in cricket news, the West Indies secured a 6-wicket victory over the Proteas women's side in the third and final T20 match in Barbados, clinching the series 2-1. Now, Matthews fell to Sunay Lees in the 465 runs in the 16th over to give South Africa some hope, only for Chanel Hendry to show also her experience and guide the host side home. While disappointed to lose the series, South African captain Laura Wolfhard said there is plenty of positives for her side to take from the tour of the West Indies. Wolfhard says she's disappointed with last night's result.
Yeah, obviously very disappointing. Disappointing way to end our trip over here. I think they batted very well. Haley batted very well. It's very hard to get around. And then Henry, obviously the power at the end. Probably missed with our lines a bit with the ball. I think we got hit quite a bit square on a slow wicket where you just want to stay tight on the stumps. Yeah, look, today I think there were a lot of small things that we got wrong in the moment, that no ball, the missed field, stuff like that. So I think we just need to keep tightening up on the small little things to make the end product a bit better.
And that's a wrap from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Well, thank you to Msibudi Makura with our sports update. And we say good afternoon to Buntle Headbush with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Lulu, and a very good afternoon to our listeners. In our top business story at this hour, Senegal's public debt climbed sharply by end March 2025. This is according to data from the country's finance ministry, which says the debt hike underlines the government's struggle to balance its spending with revenue generation amid persistent fiscal challenges. Debt servicing costs soared 44.5% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2024 to reach $1.4 billion and grew by 23.98% in the first quarter of 2025 compared to the same period last year. South Africa's Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says a payment settlement has been reached between Johannesburg Utility, City Power and Eskom in their debt dispute. City Power will now pay $178 million of the debt it owes to Eskom over a period of 4 years. Ramokgopa says the power utility will be exempted from paying during winter periods. The settlement was reached following a mediation process after a court instructed both parties to find a resolution over the payment dispute. Ramokgopa briefed the media in Johannesburg.
It's important that there's an appreciation that this is a big ticket of 3.2 billion rands. Of course, that amount has been in dispute, and City Power, I want to emphasize, and City of Johannesburg have done everything possible to maintain paying the current account. Despite all these difficulties, of course, there will be challenges from one month to the other, but the issue, the one in dispute, they remained in dispute until we resolve this matter.
Mali and Russia have signed a series of agreements aimed at expanding mutual trade and strengthening economic ties. According to details released by the Kremlin, among them is a pledge for greater cooperation on nuclear energy. Elizabeth Mapare reports.
Speaking on Monday, Russia's President Vladimir Putin said that while trade ties with Mali were modest, there was an upward trend, and future areas of cooperation would be in geological exploration, energy, logistics, and the humanitarian field. Mali and Russia have previously discussed the construction of a Russian-designed nuclear power plant as a strategic energy project for Mali. The announcement of the deals came during a visit by Mali's junta leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, to Moscow.
Nissan Motor shareholders have vented their frustrations over the automaker's poor performance at its annual general meeting. The shareholders are demanding greater management accountability for the deepening crisis at Japan's third largest car company. The meeting was a first for new boss Ivan Espinosa since he replaced Makoto Uchida as chief executive officer in April. Tracy Bumgard reports.
It remains to be seen whether the company, veteran Espinosa, will be able to halt the sharp decline at Nissan. Shares have fallen some 36% over the last year, and dividend payments have been suspended. Nissan reported a $4.5 billion net loss in the last financial year, and there is no guarantee it will return to profit this year. So far, it has declined to give a full-year earnings forecast, and has estimated a first quarter loss of $1.38 billion. For Channel Africa News, I'm Tracy Bumgard.
The US dollar has fallen after President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. The news sparked a risk rally and a sharp drop in oil prices. Trump announced a complete ceasefire between Israel and Iran, potentially ending the 12-day conflict that led millions of people to flee Tehran and prompted fears of further escalation in the war-torn region. Taking a look at indicators this afternoon, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 549. In Botswana, it's at 13 pula 36. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 50. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 20. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 51. Russia, 78 rubles 25. India, it's 86 rupees 62. China, 7 yuan 18, and South Africa, $1 is trading at 18 rand. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,320 at this hour, and platinum at $1,302 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is down at $69 a barrel at this hour. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Buntle Headbush with our business news. It is 12:44 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today, our question on hashtag Africa Update asks is, how would you explain your country and Africa to a foreign person? Our conflict in the DRC is not stopping a 23-year-old athlete from Goma from sending a message of peace across the African continent. And we'd like to hear your views and your thoughts, and on all our social media platforms. That's on at Channel Africa on X and Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
10 black rhinos have been successfully translocated from South Africa to Zinav National Park in Mozambique to help secure the first founder population of the critically endangered species, where they've become locally extinct 5 decades ago. The initiative involves South Africa's Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife, who donated the rhinos to Mozambique's National Administration for Conservation Areas, Peace Parks Foundation, and the players of the UK People's Postcode Lottery, who funded the project. Renee Heiner compiled this report.
The complex operation started more than a year ago with the darting and capturing of the rhinos in KwaZulu-Natal reserves. The 5 males and 5 females were kept in bomas at the Hluhluwe Mfolozi Park in preparation for the 48-hour-long journey by road. Dumisani Zwane, head of the game capture unit at the park, says they trained the rhinos to get used to the specially designed crates, with the main aim to release strong and healthy animals.
I think we prepared for that very well because back at Mfolozi in our bomas, we put them in, we did train them. So we did that, which I think helped us a lot.
The black rhino, which can weigh more than a ton, poses some particular challenges, says Kester Vickery from Conservation Solutions.
The black rhinos are probably one of the more challenging species that we work with. They react very differently to the drugs that we use. Typically they're very aggressive, so they're not as placid as white rhinos, so we need to be on our toes at all times.
The precious cargo was transported from northern KwaZulu-Natal through the Kosi Bay border post to their new home in southern Mozambique. The 400,000 hectare Zinav National Park is the country's only Big Five reserve and a key partner in the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Conservation Area. An agreement between Mozambique's Conservation Authority and Peace Parks Foundation, signed in 2015, aims to rewild the park to create a healthy ecosystem by introducing viable wildlife populations, which will attract tourists and support the livelihoods of local communities living around the park. Chief Warden at the park, Antonia Abakar, says the long civil war decimated the country's wildlife, but there's been a remarkable recovery in just a few years.
2016 up to now, 16 different species have been moved into Zinav National Park. In terms of relocation of game, I think about 2,400 animals were involved. But when we came up with aerial survey, some studies, it seems that population has almost doubled.
The first rhinos were successfully translocated from South Africa to the park 5 years ago. It has a population of 37 rhinos from South Africa, which includes 27 white rhinos. Increasing the number of black rhino makes it more viable to rebuild a founder population. Ignacio Chiponde, a veterinarian with the Mozambique Wildlife Alliance, says this will boost their conservation efforts.
It's a huge milestone for us as a Mozambicans to have more black rhinos here in the country. We know how emblematic, how important these animals are, how endangered these animals are at the moment. Now we are in position to join efforts in order to protect this species. It's a huge opportunity to other Mozambicans, especially the community around the park. So they also need to join forces together with the park and the government to protect such a species.
It brought great satisfaction to all involved to see the sleeping giants wake to explore their new home, with some even browsing on nearby vegetation. The rhinos will be monitored with tracking devices to ensure their security and their welfare. I'm Renee Heine for SABC News in Durban.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:49 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. To address the challenges facing press freedom in the digital age, the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom is hosting a 2-week international seminar titled Freedom of the Press, Challenges in the Digital Age at its International Academy for Leadership in Germany. Participants include journalists, media experts, liberal public figures, and non-governmental organizations, activists from around the world. Our Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe is attending the seminar in Gummersbach, Germany, and he sent us this report.
The purpose of the seminar is to interrogate and provide liberal responses to the following questions. What can media professionals and others do to ensure that the press and other media fulfill their critical role in holding leaders to account and in providing quality, credible services for their respective audiences? What to do to protect their security and independence? How can freedom of the media be preserved, protected, and promoted as a key tenet for liberal thought, and how to respond to the societal breakdowns resulting from the weaponization of information? Speaking to Channel Africa on the seminar's opening day on Monday, the seminar's facilitator, Kylie Hatton, had the following to say.
I think the most important reason why the seminar is so important right now is because you can see in a world where there is so much conflict and there is so many people operating on the extremes. This seminar shows you that there is a possibility to create spaces for people to have conversations. And I think if we're going to navigate our way through this very complex world right now, we have to find ways of having conversations. And those are very much conversations that have to happen face to face. Because it's when you're sitting across from the table from someone, you're talking to them in a room, you're getting to understand them, look them in the eye, that relationships are built. And that's really what I want to encourage when we talk about freedom of the press, is creating the spaces for those conversations.
And how will participants benefit from this August seminar? Kylie Hatton elaborates.
In terms of the impact of the seminar for the participants, my hope is that the participants will be able to walk away from the seminar with some ideas of how they can look for the opportunities and some of the challenges that they are faced with in the media world right now. Look for some of the reforms we possibly want to motivate for, possibly regulations, what are the correct regulations we want to be looking at, and what are the policy approaches that we want to be taking to protect the freedom of the press and to protect the media, because the media is one of the most fundamental institutions of democracies. And if democracies do not have a free press, they will not succeed and they will not thrive.
The seminar has attracted a diversity of participants from Latin America, Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. Milena Popovic is a journalist and human rights activist from Serbia, a country grappling with disinformation. She also serves as a member of an NGO called Center for Responsibility, Accountability and Research.
I think that this program will encourage me to continue my fight against disinformation in Serbia, but also I think that I will find a knowledge that I miss to fight against disinformation in the digital world. Disinformation in my country is not just one separating thing in digital age. The manipulation is the dominant tool of governments in my country, and we are fighting against mechanisms which include institutions, politicians, media, captured media, but also the bad actors on the social media. So we have a really strong enemy because it's a factory of fake news.
Speaking from the African perspective, Nonkululeko Nchilo is with the Daily Maverick from South Africa. He is overwhelmed with excitement over her attendance.
I'm very excited to be attending this Friedrich Naumann Foundation seminar that is taking place here in Germany. It is looking at media freedom, misinformation, as well as disinformation in the digital age. I think it's important, especially as South Africa navigates the rapid rise of AI, the growing influence of social media, journalism. I do think it's essential to stay ahead of the curve and just ready to absorb, insight from my global peers and take them back home in South Africa.
Another excited participant is Buruk Otuk, a journalist from Turkey with Euronews, says he's challenging the narrative in his country.
Thanks to the FNF, I am here in Kumbarswa for the press freedom seminars, and the program is amazing. I mean, in all around the world, every journalist has a problem about the mental health, about the press freedom, of course, about the misinformation, disinformation, and I am challenging also in Turkey about that. Also, we are challenging with new technologies and like AI, but I find the AI as useful. This program, I think it will help me to understand how the global issues on journalism and how can we find the global solutions.
Channel Africa also spoke with Emma Lois Honye, a photojournalist from Zimbabwe focusing on human rights, equality and climate change, who acknowledges both the excitement and fear surrounding AI, noting widespread concerns about its impact.
For me, this seminar is very important because I like the fact that the seminar is centering on artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence has been a topic of interest to many people in different faculties and careers, and specifically in my career, there are a lot of threats, fears, and people are scared. Some are happy. I use AI every day in my daily work, but through the seminar, I hope to learn more ways to safeguard my information and to learn how to better my job using AI.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Gummersberg, Germany.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, it is that time of the day where we say a happy Tuesday and good afternoon to Lulu Gaboo of The Upside. How are you today?
I am fantastic, Lulu. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
So here's what's coming up on the show this afternoon. We start off with Neutrogena's Winter Glow campaign. They've got a wellness retreat that will be redefining winter skincare and self-care and emotional well-being this winter, and especially now when our skins are getting a bit dry, a bit flaky. They want your skin to glow consistently. So we'll be talking about this campaign. And then we sit down with a legal powerhouse by the name of Dimakatso Mitchell Sowana about her new book, The Contracts Guru Handbook. It's a book that will allow contract law to be simplified so everyone better understands their roles and responsibilities when they enter into any contract, whether as friends doing business, selling, buying, whatever the case may be. We better understand what contract law is and how we can ensure that we don't get ripped off. And then we step into the deeply personal and political journey behind Zimbabwe's Matabeleland massacre, with director Nyasha Kadandara as her documentary debuts in Africa. And then finally, we talk about a decade-long fight for the decriminalization of sex work with the powerful documentary called Women Working, spotlighting voices of fearless activists in this movement. So it's all about film, it's about the skin a bit, and documentaries. So it's going to be a fun conversation this afternoon.
Historically, when you speak of Gugurahundi, it's a very difficult one. It's a very
tough one.
And just going through and understanding that story is really,
So it's going to be great to sort of revisit some of these conversations so that history doesn't get lost. It's very easy that we live and become more completely oblivious to the history of our countries, various countries on the African continent, and not understand why people respond the way they do. There is a backstory to a lot of these cases. So it's going to be an interesting conversation, a sad one, but an important one to have.
There's always a backstory.
Absolutely.
That's all coming up at the top of the hour on The Upside with Debuho Likuleni. For myself, Lulu Gaboo and the Africa Update team, it's been a great day. Let's do this again tomorrow and continue with us on our socials. And just to remind you of our question today, how would you explain your country and Africa to a foreign person? Obviously, somebody who's not from the African continent, with the 23-year-old athlete from Goma in the DRC, cycling all the way from the DRC through to Rwanda, Tanzania, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, and then finally South Africa, sending a message of peace across the African continent. And how would you explain your country and Africa to a foreign person? Send us your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms, and let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. SABC News. The African Perspective.